What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Unopinionated Sports Podcast. I'm Bryce, and I'm here with my good friend Sam.
Oh, hey guys.
We're just gonna jump right into playoff predictions. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you guys so much for following us on this journey. We are so excited to be bringing this podcast to you guys, and this will be the first official full-length podcast, and we're just so stoked. So without further ado, Sam, we're gonna start with Lions versus Buccaneers. What are you thinking?
Yes. Just no, I don't really have to think much about it. I think the Buccaneers looked great. They really did against the Eagles,
Yep.
but the Eagles they're a dying animal. They're wounded. They're done. So anyway, I think the Lions are going to win. They're at home again.
Yep.
I'd be shocked. And speaking of that, there was a reporter that asked the Buccaneers coach how they're going to survive the cold
I
weather. He's like, in a
it's
dome.
they played in a dome for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Newsflash. So I think Lions. What about you, Bryce?
So, it could go either way. Everything in my brain is telling me that the Lions are going to smack the Buccaneers, but my gut is telling me the Bucks, and I'm picking the Bucks.
Yeah,
That
I kind of
high
like the upset though.
that high powered offense could very easily put the Lions behind to start, and once they get down 2 scores, you can't run the ball like Ben Johnson really wants to. And I feel like
All
this
right.
is going to be a high octane, high scoring game. And I know that Dan Campbell made headlines when he said that Jared Goff is good enough for Detroit. Um, but when it comes down to it, do you really trust Jared Goff enough to just hand him a playoff game?
Hmm.
I don't know if you do.
No, I don't I would argue he's not the best quarterback in the division.
Well, I
And
don't think he is at all. I think Kirk Cousins is better. I
no,
think this year Jordan Love has
Love was
been
better
better.
than him.
I would argue.
Goff has his moments though, to the Lion fans. He
Right.
has his moments.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the Buccaneers were getting contributions from younger receivers that I barely even knew anything about. I mean,
Trey
new guys
Bowman.
this year. Yeah. Like Evans and Godwin did stuff, but they didn't do the middle of the game stuff. It was other guys
Right.
playing roles, and they're a young team too. So, except for some of their defensive guys, they're pretty young.
Right. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Baker. We talked about that last week, but um,
They should
I
pay him, I think.
I think you got to pay him. At least give him a 3-year deal. He's going to be the best
Yep.
bridge quarterback you're going to be able to find. So while you're looking for that franchise guy, I mean, and we can get into
Baker's a
this.
top. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely, absolutely is. And
Yep.
we'll get into this another time, I'm sure. But I think there needs to be something. Someone needs to talk about how the Packers have developed their quarterbacks and how the Chiefs like to develop their quarterbacks too. I feel like not enough people talk about that. But let's move on to Ravens versus the Texans.
Well, I think the Ravens they're well rested.
Yep.
I think this is where experience is going to come into play. I think the Ravens are just going to they're going to give Stroud some looks he might not have seen
Right.
recently or as often. He was in the AFC South, which I know the South. That's my other team, the Jaguars. I'll explain that someday. But anyway, Texans have had some good games, but as good as Stroud is, he's a rookie. So I'm taking the Ravens.
I know that the obvious pick is the Ravens, but there's a little tiny voice in my head that's telling me that this is CJ Stroud's year. Your camera is freezing again, by the way.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Give Sam a second to come back. There you go. So yeah, I know that the obvious pick here is the Ravens, but there's just that little voice in my head that's telling me that this is CJ Stroud's year and this is his moment, and I'm probably gonna be wrong, and I acknowledge that, but I'm going with my gut. I think the Texans pull off the crazy upset, and
I love upsets. I'm
yeah,
all for that. That'd be fun.
I really think it's possible. It's unlikely, but it's absolutely possible, and I would absolutely be here for it. I love that team
Yeah,
so much. It's hard not to
me
love that
too.
team. Bills versus the Chiefs.
Uh, I mean, my initial thought, I'm like Chiefs should win, but the way the Bills are playing right now, I got to take the Bills. I mean, the Bills are hosting the game. If it was in Kansas City,
Yep.
I'd probably give it to Kansas City, but it's in Bills Mafia land, so
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
and this is where the Chiefs are really kicking themselves for dropping some of those games that they should have had handily. Because like you said, home field advantage here means everything. I think home field advantage gets kind of overblown at times, depending on where it is. But like Kansas City, Buffalo, Seattle, even
They're both
Chicago, like
they're
those,
used to elements. Yeah.
yeah, and the elements and just those fan bases are crazy for their teams,
They
right?
jump through fire, on fire tables. Like, why do they do that? I don't know.
No one knows. Um, but I just, as a general rule, people didn't bet against Brady when he was running up the Super Bowls. I'm not betting against Mahomes. I just can't. And you have
Yeah.
to factor in the home field advantage doesn't mean quite as much against Kansas City,
No, because the
right? They're not
Chiefs just
Miami,
played a game in that.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so they're coming from cold to cold. It's not quite like going from Miami to the tundra. Um, and I keep going back to this, but the Chiefs defense I think is going to turn Josh Allen over at least once, and I think that one time Mahomes is going to make him pay because you don't give Mahomes short fields. You just don't do it. It's not going to end well for you. And we can't forget that Mahomes turns into a different animal as soon as that new year hits.
Yeah.
Right. So
I mean, Mahomes is he's a great quarterback. Obviously, future Hall
they're
of
both
Famer.
incredible
Fun to watch.
quarterbacks for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm taking the Chiefs there. All right. The bias game for you. 49ers versus the Packers.
Right. Right. So obviously, the Packer fan in me, I got to pick my Packers. They upset the Cowboys. It was awesome.
Mhm.
Didn't expect. I mean, there was like a 20%. I picked them, but I was like, you know what? They have a history down there. They won the
Right.
game. They outcoached former
Oh,
Packer. I
absolutely.
always loved McCarthy, but he was outcoached, outclassed. Dak was out quarterbacked. Yeah, a part of me, like, I know the 49ers are really good, but the Packer fan in me has to pick the Packers just because we're here. So,
Right. And one thing about that game that I noticed is that the Bears defense only giving up 17 all of a sudden looks really, really good. Just kind of
right, it really
throw
does.
that out there. But I, of course, picked the Niners. I was talking about this at work today. The Niners, I think, have the best constructed roster I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, there's no doubt. They
It's
have the most loaded roster in the league.
it's insane, and especially
Yep.
because people forget this. They traded for Chase Young this year.
Yeah.
They have Chase Young coming off one edge and Nick Bosa coming off the other. That is not a combo you want to be facing, ever.
Their backup defensive line could start at some places.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm going to say, it genuinely pains me to admit this, but the Packers are really freaking good.
Yeah.
And they're really young.
Right.
And
They have a lot of draft capital.
they have a lot. Well, I mean, the term a lot of draft capital means less to me now. Or, like, the bar is way higher to me now. Just looking at what Pauls was able to do last year and how loaded we are going forward now. But I just think they're really good. They're really young. And they're just too young for this team.
Right.
And
That's true.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's where I think experience is going to matter. Green Bay is a young team. If Green Bay loses, I'm not distraught. This has been a great rebuilding season, so it's not the end of the world to me. So,
and it's I know I'm going against my own logic with the Ravens and Texans, but I just don't have that little voice telling me that Jordan Love's gonna make it because I hate the freaking Packers so much. Green Bay does not deserve the Packers. I'll tell you that much. Packers fans don't know pain, and that makes me angry.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we're gonna move into awards, predictions, and opinions, not particularly in that order. So I'll give my opinions first. I'll run through those, and then you can go, and we'll go through all yours, and then we'll go through our predictions because we have pretty much the same predictions with I think one major difference. So for MVP, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey. I just think what he has done on that team has been sensational, and he stayed healthy for the most part. I mean, he has 16 games played. I think it's more like 15 and a half or something because I think he left.
Yeah, he missed the end of a game and then missed the last game. Yeah.
So to only play 15 and a half games and put up 2,000 yards is insane, right? Because he's not a Derrick Henry guy.
Right.
where he's bowling over guys. He's just electric, and 21 touchdowns from a running back is absurd in
It's
the modern
awesome.
NFL. Offensive Player of the
Yeah.
Year, I got Tyreek. I mean, I feel like it could. I've gone back and forth on being Tyreek or Lamar for Offensive Player of the Year. Both of them are very, very good options for sure. But Tyreek had potential to hit 2,000 yards, and he didn't hit it, but most of that was injuries, I think. Um, I don't love the drops that he had because he did have quite a few drops that didn't look, that were bad drops. I know he had a drop in the end zone. I think it was the last week of the season, the second last week. That was really bad.
Mm.
My defensive player of the year. Now again, I know this is my bias coming in, but I still have to go with Montez Sweat. He was an absolute monster this year, and a lot of this is based on outside of the numbers stuff as well. Because, for one, he's the only player to ever lead two different franchises in sacks in the same season. 6.5 with the Commanders and 6 with the Bears. So that's 12.5 sacks for the year, and he transformed that Bears defense. The Bears became a top 5 defense in the league the second he stepped foot on the field for them. And I haven't seen that kind of impact since Khalil Mack in 2017. So I think the Bears are in very good hands with him. I'm sure they'll grab another edge rusher in the draft, and it looks like Caleb Williams as well. I think the Bears defense is going to be a force because it sounds like they're locking up Jalen Johnson, who was the best corner in the league this year as well. My offensive rookie of the year is, of course, C.J. Stroud. It's hard not to give it to him, right? You can make arguments for Puka Nacua, absolutely. I think if Anthony Richardson had stayed healthy, you can make an argument for him. But C.J. Stroud played so well. Absolute generational talent. Making the Panthers look real stupid this year for trading that haul to take Bryce Young. Now, my defensive rookie of the year is on the same team, Will Anderson. You take what he did with a very young and what shouldn't have been a very good defense. And that pass rush win rate you see at the bottom there, that actually puts him at 3rd among all edge rushers this year.
That's
at 26%. Yeah. That's insane, right? Jalen Carter, obviously, very, very good rookie season. But he didn't even get to start most games. I think I saw he only started 1 game this year because they have Jordan Davis, who, I mean, we'll talk about him later in the Eagles as a whole later. But, yeah, I absolutely loved what Will Anderson did. And I love what the Texans did. They took Stroud and then traded up to take Will Anderson, which is something that I only thought happened to Madden. But they said, all right, we believe in it. We're going to do it. And I don't think they're going to regret it, looking back on it now. My comeback player of the year is Joe Flacco. Flacco was a revelation. I mean, you just look at those stats. It is absurd. That's his 17-game pace based on a 5-game sample size. It's not a huge sample size, but 5 games isn't nothing, right? Almost 5,500 yards, 44 touchdowns, and 27 interceptions. Obviously, he turned into a pumpkin in the playoffs, but I'm giving this based on regular season, not based on the playoffs. So, I think Flacco came in and he made the Browns look stupid, too, on top of that. I mean, you just think about what they gave up for Deshaun Watson when they could have just signed Joe Flacco off the couch for nothing. And Coach of the Year, I mean, I'm just showing how much I love the Texans, right? But D'Amico Ryans coming in as first-year head coach, leading a team not only to a 10-win season, but to the second round of the playoffs now. It just shows how great of a coach he is, and what he was able to do with that team was nothing short of incredible. All right.
Agree with that.
Let's go through your picks.
Yes, sir. All right, so for MVP, it's not updated on my screen, but I know we're on MVP. There it is.
Yep.
All right. So for MVP, I got Lamar Jackson winning it, right? I have Lamar?
I think you told me it was McCaffrey, but I can pull up.
Yeah. Sorry. I wrote in wrong order. So, no, I agree with you. McCaffrey, it was one of the best seasons, especially in the era where it's not – running backs are not talked about as much. They're not loved as much. I do think it'd be great to see McCaffrey win it. I'm good friends with his former high school basketball coach. He loves him to death.
That's
Obviously,
awesome.
we've been talking about him lately. That's a fun fact. Name drop. But obviously, I wouldn't be opposed to Lamar Jackson winning. I think that's who's going to actually probably win it because it's a quarterback award. They might as well just put the MVP for quarterback. So,
Right.
but then offensive player of the year, I thought it'd be fun to have Tyreek Hill win it because he had insane numbers. If he didn't miss that one game, or was it basically 2 games,
Yeah.
it would have been fun to see. He was trajectorying towards 2,000 yards receiving,
Right.
wasn't he, Bryce?
Yep.
For a while there. Yeah. No, it's pretty awesome. And for defensive player of the year, I think it's going to come down to like 2 players. I think it's going to be Myles Garrett and T.J. Watt
Yep.
because they both had big seasons again. I know Watt won it last year.
Yep.
So I think but Garrett had a great season. Garrett, I think he had, what was it, 9.5 sacks, but he had 4 forced fumbles. You couldn't go wrong with either one.
Right.
But it's up to the media. The media will probably go with, they like doing new faces. Sometimes they'll probably go with Garrett, I would think. But and then is defensive rookie next?
Offensive
I
rookie.
think. Offensive rookie, yes, can't forget about offensive rookie. So I agree with Bryce. Stroud had a great season, but I thought it'd be kind of fun in a down year where statistics for quarterbacks were down a little bit from the bar we've had. Maybe that's the Brady effect being out of the league. I don't know, but I thought it'd be fun if Puka won it. You know, somebody different. He had didn't he have set records with the Rams?
Yeah, he set
Not St. Louis, but
not only did he set the record for the Rams, he set the rookie record for most yards in a season.
That'd be fun, and I love everything about C.J. Stroud. I really do. I just don't love that he's in the AFC South. I have to deal with him for a decade plus. But Puka would be a fun story. Defensive rookie. There's a couple candidates that are worth considering, but there's some noteworthy ones like Witherspoon had a great season for the for the Lions. He's still in the playoffs right now. Big.
No,
They won on that draft pick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Said the wrong guy. There's a corner on the Seahawks, and I said it wrong. Oh, there you go. There's my first gaffe. So anyway, Witherspoon had a great season for the Seahawks. But I think Carter, statistically, he was like third in pass rush, and he was disruptive for the Eagles. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy with that pick at the time, but if he keeps his head right, he's a great player on the field. So, comeback player of the year, is that next, I see? Sometimes I have to wait a little bit. It delays for it to load on my end. So I'm seeing it after I start talking, which is fine. So, comeback player of the year, I can talk about this one. I think it'd be cool if Tua came back because he's come back from multiple injuries. He had those 2 or 3 concussions last year, and there was a while when they're like, is he going to have to retire in the offseason?
Right.
Like, it was a big problem. So he made it through the whole year, no concussions that have been reported. That's pretty awesome. He must have great helmets now or something, or whatever he's doing in the off season's working. But I'm sure Damar Hamlin's going to win it. It is amazing. He overcame death. You know, the staff saved him. He's probably going to win it. I lean towards giving it to someone that played the whole season, but that's just me. But that's who's going to win it. And then we're at
Coach of the year.
Coach of the year. Okay, so this is tough. But Bryce had a good point about Ryans. He did have a great season. But I think it's going to go to Dan Campbell with the Lions. Now, obviously, it's based off the regular season. They had their ups and downs. They had some upsets. They had some victories. But I'm thinking it'll be Dan Campbell because, let's face it, the Lions have had a miserable last 30 years.
Right.
They've wasted 2 Hall of Fame players. Had lots of friends. Shout out to Jim and Tracy and Marco. They all called me. They're all ecstatic. Like, they got emotional. I mean, it's huge for the Lions. We both know, as liking teams in that division, they were like gimme games, except for the end of last year when Rodgers failed us and we lost to the Lions in a must-win game. So shout out to Campbell. He is a good coach. He's fun to watch. If you're bored, watch highlights of him on Hard Knocks. It's worth your time.
Absolutely. So now we're going to move into our predictions. So
Yes.
MVP, obviously it's going to be Lamar. It's a quarterback's award. Um, I don't know why we don't just call it the most valuable quarterback at this point, but
That's what I was saying.
uh, you know, for anyone saying he's not quarterbacky enough, they don't know anything about football. Um,
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Fact of the matter is, 4,500 yards, 29 touchdowns, 13 turnovers. That's interceptions and fumbles combined, by the way, which is incredible. Um, he had an amazing season, especially because of how beat up they got. Right, the Ravens.
Losing 2 running backs.
Yep. They lost, and then they lost Mark Andrews on top of that. Like they had a rough year this year when it came to injuries, especially on offense. None on defense, though. Surprisingly, they were very, very healthy on defense, which I think is going to serve them well as long as they can stay healthy through the playoffs. Offensive Player of the Year, we both picked McCaffrey. He's a no-brainer if he doesn't win MVP to win Offensive Player of the Year. I think you can't be mad about it, right? He was just incredible. He was everything that we ever thought he would be and more.
Yeah.
Defensive Player of the Year, like I said, T.J. Watt. Just an incredible year. I just think his production was so much better than Myles Garrett's this year that they're not going to be able to give it to anyone else. I mean, another 5 sacks, same number of forced fumbles, and close in tackles as well. And he was banged up. T.J. Watt was banged up this year.
He missed segments of games this year.
So he absolutely could have got into the 20s for sacks as well. So, and I think he broke the record for sacks in the year last year, didn't he?
Yeah, he should have honestly got more MVP votes if he didn't.
Right.
He was that dominant last year.
Absolutely. And watching the Watt brothers is just insane. It's some of the most fun you can possibly have watching football, that's for sure. Offensive Rookie of the Year, it's obviously going to be C.J. Stroud. You could absolutely make an argument for Puka Nacua like you did.
Right.
You could give it to either one of those guys. I just think what C.J. Stroud has done, because, just watching the playoff game last week.
He doesn't look like a rookie.
No. He makes throws that rookies don't make. Right?
And so cerebral. He's very smart.
Which is crazy because he was one of the worst scores ever on whatever test it is that they give the quarterbacks.
The Wonderlic score.
Yep. Which is
just crazy. Tells you some of that stuff you can throw out the window. Some of it it's crazy.
And, everyone made fun of him. I made fun of him, too. I thought it was a really funny meme at the time. And he has just taken that and spit in all of our faces and said, watch what I can do. Which, you can't hate on that. Just a spectacular kid. And he's a great kid off the field as well. You don't hear him griping or complaining or anything. Like with certain wide receivers in Philadelphia, especially. Not throwing shade or anything. Don't worry.
Nah, never.
But, yeah, either one of those guys, you can't be mad about them winning it. Does have to be noted, Matthew Stafford has been the quarterback for Calvin Johnson, when he had the most yards ever. Cooper Kupp, the last time that a receiver won the Triple Crown. And now Puka Nacua with the single best rookie season ever. So, Stafford is... I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks ever. I'm glad that he's gotten to LA, where now people are realizing how good he is, because he was wasting away in Detroit. And I know Lions fans don't like to hear that, but it's true.
Right, and he got his ring, which was important.
Absolutely. Jalen Carter, he's obviously going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I'm not mad the Bears didn't take him. I think he went to the perfect situation in Philadelphia. Jordan Davis, it was reported, is the only guy in the league that his coaches thought could handle him, that could really kind of rein him in. It just says a lot when your own college coaches don't like you, right? When your college coaches are not only not going out of their way to congratulate you and talk you up, they're actually, when people ask, they're talking about how not great and how uncoachable you are. It's never a good sign. I wish him all the best. He's had an incredible start to his rookie year. I just like to see him not throttle it on and off whenever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Comeback Player of the Year, like you said, DeMar Hamlin. He's the surefire pick to win it. Don't love it, but I mean, you can't deny the fact that he went through. He was the focal point of one of the worst points in football history, I think. That
Yeah.
moment was just shocking. And the
Right.
fact that we still don't really know what happened is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It was really tough seeing people that were like demanding that his public health records and stuff were made, or his private health records were made public and stuff. But um, I think coming back from what he did is amazing. I just don't like giving it to a guy that isn't very good at football, like I said before. So,
Right.
and actually, I think your pick is better than my pick for comeback player of the year. I think Tua absolutely deserves it more than Flacco. Now that I'm thinking about it, but like we said as well, coach of the year, Dan Campbell for sure. The Lions, like you said, like I got friends and family that are diehard Lions fans as well, growing up in that
Oh
area.
yeah,
So just hearing how ecstatic they are is awesome, and
it is pretty cool.
I can't wait to start hating the Lions when they're good for the next 2 years as well. So now we're gonna move into our rookies. So we both took the time to rank the rookies 1 to 10, and then we've got some honorable mentions. So I'll just run through mine real quick. C.J. Stroud, Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Tank Dell, Sam Laporta, Will Anderson, Christian Gonzalez, Jalen Carter, and Devin Witherspoon. I'll just give a short note on all of them. C.J. Stroud, Puka Nacua, we've talked about a lot. Jahmyr Gibbs, doing what he did in a backfield with David Montgomery was incredible. He had flashes. I think there were a lot of moments that he kind of faded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there were a few runs, especially in the red zone, where he just couldn't accelerate fast enough. But he's in the perfect system. I think it'll just get better and better. Bijan, firing Arthur Smith is the best thing they could have done for him. I think next year he will be even better, and I think that firing will shoot Bijan straight up the draft board for dynasty startups as well. Tank Dell, I hated seeing him get hurt. That really sucked.
Yeah.
My only worry for him is that they add another superstar receiver in free agency or in the draft, and that'll diminish either him or Nico Collins. I'm not sure which one it'll be. It might be Tank Dell because they have more draft capital invested in him, I believe. But I'm definitely interested to see what happens with him going forward. And then Sam Laporta, I mean, has to be the best rookie tight end we've ever seen in modern
my
history.
goodness.
Like, he was incredible. He was breaking records left and right. Exactly what they needed. He's just TJ Hawkinson 2.0. Iowa just turns out those tight ends like a factory. It's absolutely ridiculous. Will Anderson, like I said before, absolute stud. He's only going to get better. Christian Gonzalez, sucked that he got hurt. Really did.
Yeah.
I think he was shaping up to be the best corner in this class. And then Jalen Carter, we talked about him already, and Devin Witherspoon, we talked about him as well. Just got some honorable mentions. Davon Achane, Dalton Kincaid, Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, Ivan Pace, we were talking about before. He was an absolute stud, I think he played like 10 different positions or 9 different positions on defense.
Yeah, he was a multi-tool for them.
Reminds me of me when I played. But, yeah. So now yours. Give me a short note on all the guys that you want.
Sure.
Actually.
So when I was doing mine, I just kind of did a little research and then kind of rapid fire. I realized I didn't prioritize running backs as high as I should have, but it's kind of like draft and replace are kind of how running backs seem to go. You use them up for 3 or 4 years, and once they load. So I know the first couple I can at least start talking on. So, so the first ones are just like kind of like you. We got Stroud.
Hold on, these aren't
Puka.
your proper rankings. Let me fix this real quick.
Yeah, no, you're good. Anyway, CJ Stroud and Puka are obviously 1, 2. We got Carter, number 3. He just had a great defensive year, and that's where I struggle ranking offense with defense, and got to give some defense guys to love. Laporta, Iowa Hawkeye boy, he's awesome. tight ends. They're a tight end factory. If I could just figure out how to get quarterbacks, that would be a good
Right.
thing. They haven't had a decent one since Jaguars backup C.J. Beathard. Um, yeah, and then Devon Witherspoon, he had a great year. He's been great. In the next wave, I think I have Will Anderson sixth. That's correct.
Yeah, just
Will Anderson had a good year, lots of pressure, and he was drafted well. And then Tank Dell, obviously that was I'm with you. That was a bummer that he got hurt. Imagine him in the playoffs with
Oh,
Stroud. That'd be
man.
awesome. And then Addison, a great year. Made the most of his opportunity,
I was
and
surprised. I thought you
he
were
was
really
the
high on
number.
Addison.
Yeah, no, he's good. Yeah, I was probably a little too high, but he did he did take he helped keep the offense
Oh,
going. Now,
absolutely.
granted, I
Yeah.
would have loved to see him with
Jefferson. Oh, correct.
Jefferson and with his quarterback. He lost Cousins,
Yep.
so I think he did good considering he was receiving the ball from all these patchwork guys.
Right.
And then we got uh, Byron Young had a good season. What was nice about him, I find my note. But anyway, he did really well statistically. Running backs should have had them a little higher. Bijan Robinson had a great season. Had him in a couple of my fantasy leagues. And then after that, I think I had um, then honorable mentions, right?
Yep.
Honorable mentions. Yeah. So good honorable mentions are Shane, Texas A&M running back. He showed flashes. Again, he got hurt. Nice to see a full season of him. But Miami does a weird like committee kind of thing, so he'll
Right.
shine next year.
Yep.
Gibbs should have Gibbs a little higher. Gibbs great season. Him and Montgomery, man, just 1-2 punch.
Yep.
Next year, I assume he'll get even more carries. The kicker for Dallas, Aubrey, is that how you say his
Brendan
name?
Aubrey. Yep.
Had a great season statistically, one of the best rookie seasons in a while. He gives a shot. And then I'm with you on Ivan Pace with the Vikings. I didn't know much about him. 5th round draft pick, but man, he stepped right in. He replaced a veteran on the team, and he had 68 tackles, 2.5 sacks. That's great production out of a 5th round pick.
Talk about a stud.
Yeah, definitely a stud. They found a gem in the 5th round.
Right. Good stuff. So now we're going to talk about what I think is probably the biggest news story coming out of the NFL. Just what on earth happened to the Eagles? Right? So I'll just I'm going to monologue a little bit here, but I'm going to give you some stats. Okay. In Philadelphia's wins, they gave up 20 to the Patriots, 28 to the Vikings, 11 to the Bucks, 31 to the Commanders, 14 to the Rams, 17 to the Dolphins, 31 to the Commanders again, 23 to the Cowboys, 17 to the Chiefs, 34 to the Bills, and 25 to the Giants. Now, I'm going to introduce a little bit of I didn't tell you about this before, but I think this will be a good segment to have in the future for news stories like this. I'm going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay? I'm just going to summarize it a little bit into those 3 categories. The good is obviously they only gave up 11 to the Bucks, which we know are an insanely high-powered offense, even if it was early in the season. They gave up 14 to the Rams, playoff team. Played very well, because that was when Kupp was active as well. 17 to the Dolphins. Again, Dolphins had their ups and downs, but that's an... Sorry, my dog's making noise. 17 to the Dolphins. Very high-powered offense, right? And then 17 to the Chiefs. Again, they had their ups and downs, but obviously this team was capable of holding big-time offenses in check. Right? Yep. Like, we know this. But, and we also know Jalen Carter, I don't want anything I said to be misconstrued. Jalen Carter is going to be a stud in the NFL. Okay? Like, on his current trajectory, he is going to be a very, very, very good player. With that said, we're going to go to the bad. So I looked at some PFF grades. I know this isn't the be-all, end-all, but this is absolutely... when it comes to DBs, it's fairly accurate. So Darius Slay regressed from last year from a 73 to a 68. But the big hit they took in the secondary, James Bradbury regressed from a 74 to a 56 this year.
Ooh.
Okay, so James Bradbury and Darius Slay last year were arguably the best cornerback duo in the league.
Mm.
And this year they were below average, both of them.
Right.
Nakobe Dean, who they needed to step up, right, because they had a lot of injuries to that position, was not essentially a non-factor. He barely played.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nicholas Morrow, former Bears linebacker, did fairly well, but he was nothing special. And then they lost Javon Hargrave in the offseason to the Niners. And so they needed Jordan Davis to take a huge step up. They needed him. They were counting on him to be that next superstar with them for the front seven. And he was good. Right? He was good. He wasn't spectacular. He was just good.
Right.
Now that brings us to the ugly. They give up 20 points to the Patriots. They give up 31 to the Commanders twice. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Cardinals, giving up 35 points. And they lost to the Giants, giving up 27 points. Those are bad, bad, bad losses. And that's not even counting...
And cost them home field.
Right. And that's not even counting the fact that they only scored 9 points against Tampa Bay. Right. It was just an ugly, ugly season. And I think it comes down to this. The team is just not that well coached. Hurts took a step back. Their running game regressed. A.J. Brown proved to be even more of a diva than we thought he was beforehand somehow, which is a feat in and of itself. And I don't know if he's going to be part of the team going forward. I don't know if you saw this, but on Friday, he actually deleted all of Eagles-related posts on his socials, which is never a good sign. And we don't know what's happening with Jason Kelce all of a sudden. He said he was retiring. Now he's walking back. I don't know if he said he was, but it was announced that he's retiring. Now he's changed his mind. He's saying that the emotions were too much in the moment, that he can't make the decision right now. But I think their window's closed. I think they're done. Their running game took a huge step back too.
And they have a lot of free agents. They have like 10 or 15 free agents.
Yep.
So.
And
it's a mess.
And I know you don't. I know you're not a Sirianni guy, at all. I think he fit in very well in Philly with his attitude.
That's true. He is. He does. Right. That's true.
I just don't think he's all that good of a coach. I think Shane Steichen was what they needed. I think they needed him to stay.
Yeah.
And I think looking back on it, I wonder if they had a choice, if they would fire Sirianni last year and just promote Steichen to head coach. Which I think that needs.
Well, they could have kept Doug. They could have kept Doug, who
True.
Won a Super Bowl with them.
I think that needs to be a more common thing in the NFL. I think they need to fire more head coaches and promote offensive coordinators to keep guys in the building. I know that it's not a very popular tactic, and I know why it's not. You know, wouldn't be the best for the chemistry of the coaching staff. But if you have a guy like, you look at the Falcons, right, with Kyle Shanahan, right? They decided to keep Dan Quinn and let Kyle Shanahan walk. Now, if you rewind the clock, I can guarantee you they would fire Dan Quinn and promote Kyle Shanahan on the spot if you gave them the choice.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But that's my rant. Why don't you give me what you think?
Sure. No, I'm with you on the Sirianni thing. He just seems kind of immature at times. Obviously, I don't know him, but just from what I see, he likes the limelight to be on him. Obviously, they had issues either with him and coaches or issues with numbers of the defense that they reassigned their defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. They hired Matt Patricia, which I get. He has a history in great defenses with the Patriots, but he was like some advisor role. They took him from advisor role, put him right on the field, like week 12 in the middle of the season. Kind of a weird thing to do. So there was obviously some disconnect, or the defense was angry. There was a scapegoat guy. They didn't really fire him. They kind of like reassigned him, like, just swap with Patricia. Well, why don't you do that beginning of the season? Like, I don't know. But anyway, they were falling short of their expectations, obviously. They started the year, they looked like the best team in the league at the first
10-1
10 weeks of the season.
Yep.
Um, so I'm with you. Hurts was hurt a good chunk of the time, so I'll give him that a little bit. But he did seem like a little bit of regression too. I'm with you on that. But obviously, maybe his injuries were worse than we thought. He had that flu game in Seattle, and played with that finger the last 2 weeks too. So it's hard to say. But I'm with you on the Devon Brown. If he's unfollowing things, that means he's grumpy. So
Yeah,
not good.
it's gonna be interesting to see how that shakes out. Um,
Hmm.
I'll give you a second to reset your camera real quick, but
Okay.
I am both excited for and dreading what we're gonna be seeing um, in the next few weeks because it means that football's almost over. You know, and that
Right.
isn't a fun proposition by any means.
Sure.
But um, at the end of the day, it's playoff football, and you can't be mad about playoff football by any means. So, yeah, with that said, I'm gonna wrap this up here. At some point, we got to figure out a better outro for these things. But
Right. We'll sometime have music someday with
yeah,
cool graphics. But don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We have an Instagram page. Maybe we'll put a link on this one of these days when we get cool like that. And also, eventually, we'll probably make a TikTok.
face.
And of course, we're on.
It's right down there.
Um, yeah, you can follow us on a bunch of things, and we'll keep growing more avenues to follow us on as we go. Eventually, we'll be on X/Twitter,
Absolutely.
and just stay tuned for that. And thank you for listening to us. If you made it to this point, good job.
Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Leave some comments down below. Anything you want to see us do, any content you'd like to see, and we'd absolutely listen to anything you guys, any suggestions you guys have. We're planning on doing some mock drafts as we move forward. We want to do a bunch of those this off season for redraft and dynasty. We're super into fantasy. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, we're really looking forward to it. We got some awesome stuff with predicting coaching landing spots and free agency. So stay tuned for that. And thank you guys again so much for hanging with us for this. I don't even know how long it's been, about an hour. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.